All right, so today we are starting to build on our inherited traits. So there's a special way that our genes work when we get the two different genes from our parents that tells us if we're likely to have one trait versus another. So here's our notes. So today is the 14th. Okay. So dominant and recessive alleles, those are basically traits. You could use those words kind of interchangeable for what we need to know for fifth grade. Now, if you were a scientist, you probably wouldn't want to interchange those words because you need to be a little bit more specific. So, all right. So this first word here, go ahead and cross it out, and I want you to write all on the top. All reproducing organisms, which are plants and animals, have pairs of chromosomes. You get one of the chromosome from your mom, one of them from your father. Organisms that have pairs of chromosomes have pairs of genes, and thus two alleles or traits for every gene. An allele is a form of a gene that controls a trait. So that's why for fifth grade, we can interchange those two words. So I'm going to box those in. Okay. Types of alleles. For most traits, there are two alleles for every gene. The stronger allele is called the dominant allele. The dominant allele codes for the dominant trait. The dominant allele is always expressed when present. So those ones, if you have it, that's the one that shows up. The weaker allele is called the recessive allele. The recessive allele codes for the recessive trait. The recessive allele is hidden and not expressed when a dominant allele is present. The recessive allele is only expressed, meaning it shows up, when an organism has two recessive alleles. So for example, for being tall, let's just think of T for tall. If I had a dominant tall trait and a recessive tall trait, that's going to make me be tall. Like I'm going to get the dominant one. If I have two dominant tall ones, I'm going to be tall. So that would result in a tall one. Now, if I had two recessive tall genes, that would give me a recessive tall. Okay? So always when you have the capital, which is your dominant gene, if that is present, it's always going to come through the dominant one. Okay? So combinations like what I was just showing you up here, I could have two dominant ones, I could have two recessives, so two dominant, two recessive, or one dominant and one recessive, like right here. Okay, if an organism has two of the same kind of gene, like here and here, it's called homogeneous. This prefix homo, it means same. Okay. The organism that has two dominant alleles is also homogeneous dominant. The one with two recessive ones is homogeneous recessive. Then the ones that have two different traits right here is called heterogeneous, because hetero means different. Okay? Basically, that's all you need to know from this one. So there's three different types you can have. You can have a mix of dominant and recessive. You could have a dominant and dominant, or you could have a recessive. Okay? All right. So go ahead, make those notes on your page, and then I want you to glue this one in. So now, a way that they tell what trait you're going to get or the likelihood of you having that trait is called a punnet square. So these are your notes for punnet square, and we're going to take some notes on it. So go ahead and glue that in, and then we'll go over it. So go ahead and pause it and glue it in. All right, so you got that glued in. So Punnett squares are diagrams that help us determine the probability or likelihood of an offspring inheriting a certain genotype, which is what we just did over there. These are genotypes right here. Genotype, where am I? For the phenotype. These big words here, you guys don't really need to know them. You just kind of need to know how you can figure out how you're going to get a certain trait, okay? And we already talked about how dominant, we symbolize the dominant allele of the gene with a capital letter. We symbolize recessive allele for the gene in lowercase version of the same letter as the dominant gene. So like for my tall and tall, I had the T. So there's a capital T and lowercase t. This one also talks about how to use a Punnett square, which we're going to go over this. Like we're going to actually do one. Actually, for this example, it's easier to show. All right, so I'm going to talk about these, but I'm not going to read them all to you because you guys need to know it, but not as in much detail as you will when you're in 7th grade, because you'll visit this again in 7th grade. All right, so here's a pea plant. It's controlled by one gene. There are 2 alleles for this gene, T and T. So T for tall and lowercase t for short. T is the dominant allele and short is the recessive allele. 2 parents, both heterogeneous, meaning they have the capital T and lowercase t, are crossed to produce offspring. What are the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring? Remember, heterogeneous means they have both the traits. So these squares are very similar to the box method for multiplication. So across the top is mom. Along the side is dad. So they're both uppercase and lowercase t. So we just split the 2 t's up. So T and T. And then you do the same thing that you do for box method. So this T and this T will go together. Then this T and this T go together. Then this T and this T go together. And then this T and this T go together. Okay, so this is 25% that they could be that, end up inheriting those genes. Then 25% that would be the outcome, 25% that would be outcome, 25% that would be outcome. So this shows that they have a 25 or 1/4 chance of having 2 tall dominant traits, meaning that they would be tall. There is a 50%, because there's one here, or this one and this one right here, or half the chance that they would be they would be heterogeneous for the tall short traits, for those traits. So they would end up being tall for sure for this one. And remember, the dominant trait shows here and here. So 1, 2, 3 out of 4 chance that they're going to be tall. So 75% chance that they'll have a tall offspring. There's only a 25% chance that they're going to be short, that they would have the short trait. Okay? So we're going to make a square like this on the next page. So go ahead and move on to the next video.